This morning I'm going to fit the radiator and fit the new ignition switch. This is the bottom hose from the 200 TDI conversion, and I designed this and had it made at Classic Silicon Hoses, and it's basically, you can see where it's going. That's why it is the way that it is. There's a bit of a kink in there as well. So I'm now going to put a standard radiator, which is the one I had in before, back in. I am struggling with one part of that, which I'll come to in a moment. So this here is the fan shroud from a series Land Rover. It also has a heat shield for the battery, which that obviously wants cleaning and painting. That's why I've took that off. This is held on with nine shoulder bolts, which I think are 6BA. I know I've got some. They're in a safe place. I can't find them anywhere. So I'm going to leave that off for now and just focus on getting the radiator back in. If I need to, I'll have to remove the fan to be able to slide that back in. This one's cleaning up anyway. So this radiator is an original radiator. It's not the original one from this. I put this in over a year ago, and it was a late night emergency, I need a radiator quick sort of thing. The one that was in here before was a brand new reproduction one, and it had just failed basically. It had just sprung a leak, and I was going on a long journey and I needed a radiator that didn't leak. I'd not got any eggs spare, and this was the quickest solution to change this out. So that's the radiator that's going to go back in. It don't leak, it's going to do the job. Right, that's the radiator back on. I've gone ahead and fitted the grille. There's no reason why that can't go on. The only difference I've done to this time is I've put this horseshoe on here. The reason for why I've done that is because I imagine my dad made this at some point, probably before I was born. It's been around for as long as I've known it, as long as I've been alive, and I thought, well, seeing as this used to be his old truck, I would put that on because I've got absolutely no use for it anywhere else. So I put it down there because I've only got one position to mount it from, so I just thought that was the best place to put it. But we'll see how it goes. Obviously I've put the AA and the RAC badges on it some years ago, but yeah, it's just an extra thing we've got on there. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to fit the ignition switch. I've got the new ignition switch here. It's a proper Lucas branded part. That's the old one. It does work, but it's a bit iffy, so I'm just going to fit a new one. These are very expensive for what they are, but got the same connectors, so should work out alright. So I was hoping that this would be a nice little 5-minute job, because that's all it is. It's just a matter of fitting a switch, but apparently not. It's I don't want to lose that. So not only have these holes in here not been tapped, they don't at all line up with the holes in the casting. So I haven't got a clue what to do with this. This switch can only go in one way because it's located by that point there. So I have got no idea, but it's just annoying that this should be just fit 2 screws and away we go, and it's not. So I'm going to have to faff around with this for a bit. So what I've ended up doing here is drilling and tapping this with a 3mm tap and putting some 3mm bolts in to use as grub screws to hold that in. This probably took an hour. It should have took 2 minutes because I had to go and get the bolts and this and other, because this is not a size I would stock. So I'm now going to get this fitted. So it's just gone 12 o'clock. I'm slightly annoyed because having sort of gone through this last week and had the rigmarole this morning with the screws not fitting and this and other, I put it back together and wired it up as per the diagram, and I got exactly the same problem where the lights were only coming on when the starter was activated. So I thought, surely not, you know. So all I've done is just basically flicked around with the wiring until I've got it to work how it should work. So it's like position 1, position 2, start, off. So now that's done, we can move on. Right, I'm working on the choke cable at the minute. I'm then going to move on to the carburettor and the inlet manifold. So all we have here is the original choke pull that we've seen before. We've put a new cable into it and crimped that over. I had to drill that out 1.5mm diameter. I really should have gone 2mm, but we've made it work. We drilled two 2mm holes on the top to replicate the original one, which is there. And part of this broke as we did it. And then all we've done is use the punch that's in my hand here just to crimp that in there. So that's in, I'm happy it's tight. So I now need to feed this through the barrel, and then we have a short cable here which is going to go onto the end of the barrel, and it's going to go up to this device here. Now this is part of an outer choke cable that I'm going to use over here, which will be our choke light switch. Now if you look inside, you probably can't quite see it, but there's a shoulder, if you like, which is what the switch operates on. So I'm going to use some bike wheel spoke nuts, and I'm going to use that and crimp these on as my position for the light switch. So I'm going to start by feeding this through. I'm going to feed that through the outer, and then what we have here is I've drilled and tapped this to have these nuts on, which the outer sleeve will simply go into and sit into like that. So it's all been well thought out, this, and now we need to get on and fit it. So now I've got the outer cable in place. I'm just going to try and feed the inner cable through without damaging the end, hopefully. It's gone through. See, the outer cable is where it should be. It's currently locked at that. That unlocks and so it's currently locked, unlocked. So it's fully in and locked. That's where we want it for now. So the cable is going behind the heater vent pipe, and it's coming out of here. I'm now going to insert this collar. The cable should be more than long enough to get over to that side of the engine. So I'm going to insert the collar, so it's going to be steel band to the top. Like that. And then going to mark the hole positions with some special red cable marker spray. So this is a wheel spoke nut that I've cut the top end off to leave this section here. The square section I've put a slot down. So now we're going to see if what I want to happen will actually happen. So I've already put the screw-in end on the outer cable there. I'm going to slide this down here. My idea to spray paint this didn't work. Hang on, this goes on the other way. Goes on that way. And all I'm going to see if I can do is that nut is brass, I don't know if I mentioned it, and I want to see if by lining that up there, so the big bit is in line with the big hole on here. I don't know if you can see that where I'm pointing. So with that lined up there, I want to see if I can crimp that on with my own brute force. Check that we are in the correct position. And I think there will be fine. No, it has not worked. Right, so that has worked, but it did move, and it's a mile off. I think we're on. That has actually broke. So back to the drawing board. I've thought of something else. Right, so I've kind of got this where I want it, but the trouble is the gap between that and that isn't great enough, so I just need to remove the first couple of threads to allow us to be able to pull the choke out further. So I'm going to do that with an angle grinder and try not to lose my fingers. Right, so obviously the right thing to do here will be to clean up that surface so that this will screw down onto it. But as we can see, it's straight on. So the brass blob is right in the centre of that hole, which is exactly where we want it. It took like 10 attempts. So I've even managed to include a original Bi-Crest choke warning light switch. That will go on there. Obviously when that other end's up, then we can use these to adjust the tension on them. The wiring's already in place. The wiring is on the other side, but because we had a glow plug relay on this, the wiring has been cut, so I just need to go through that and hopefully that switch will still work. So I've put all the dash and column surround back on here. Nothing really that interesting, that wasn't really worth filming. So now with the key in the ignition, we've got oil pressure, charge, we should have main beam there, and the choke, which is sticking through here. Now I can never quite get these to fit, but we can always come back to it. And if we pull the choke, the light comes on. Now there is still a bit of setting up to do here, because when you push it back in, it's just pushing the whole cable back, but I'm hoping when it's fastened up, this is going to work quite nice. I went through all this, and I promise you, I didn't cheat, because that spare £5 one that I bought is still intact on this back of this forklift. Right, this is a 1970 petrol engine Land Rover. That should be over there, but what I'm interested in seeing is the inlet manifold, so you can see the pickup for the vacuum for the power lock brakes over there. That is a Zenith copy carburettor, one of the paddock specials, and this is the standard setup. And what I'm proposing to do is to swap this out for this setup, which is a standard exhaust manifold but a different inlet manifold to suit a HIF SU carburettor. Now I have had this for a number of years and I've never used it, so I thought now would be the opportunity to do so. So this needs cleaning, it needs checking, see if it's okay, and then we need to look into cable mechanisms, throttle mechanisms, and any other mechanism you can possibly think of having. Now, I've got a couple of these spare, so hopefully it will not be too bad. But first, that stud is sheared off, so I'm going to remove that first of all. Now ordinarily when I have this sort of a problem, I'd be straight onto the gas warming it up, but I don't want to damage this manifold. I don't know where I've been told, but I don't know who designed and made them. But anyway, that's irrelevant. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a electronic heat gun and warm it up and get it out with a stud remover. So this has been on here a couple of minutes now, and it's getting warm, so I'm going to turn that off and put that down there, and then hopefully this should remove. There we go. Can't argue with that. So next job, cleaning up and the carburettor. What we also need to do is find a spot to drill and tap for our servo assisted brake. Next job, we're going to start looking at the carburettor, and what we're going to do is completely rebuild it. That is the heat shield come positions for the cables to come onto. So we've got a throttle cable like that, and we've got a choke cable like that. And what we're going to do is we're going to get rid of that. We're going to use that to clear the vent, and then we're going to rebuild this. So that's the air filter rebuilt. So what I'm going to do now is remove that. So we can rebuild inside it. It's wrong size. So what we're going to do now is remove the air filter so we can rebuild inside it. That goes on the rebuild pile. I've had this carburettor for about 10 years and I've never once used it. So I want a couple of 13s. I've no idea what this carburettor is actually off. It's not MGB, because they are MGB. A 1978 model, to be precise. I don't know what idiot actually did this, because they obviously thought that... Oh dear. What are you doing, man? What are you doing? They obviously thought that needed to have nuts on it. I don't know. Really my work here. So I was told that this carburettor had been jetted up for a Land Rover. 10 years ago. It's sat on the shelf ever since, along with the manifold. A bit more rebuilding to do. And this is all just 10 years of grime on here. Ooh dear. Got carburettor rebuild spray in the eye. Ooh. Yeah, my glasses are there just getting soaked in carburettor rebuild spray. So SU stands for Skinner Union. This is a HIF carburettor. It fits horizontally and it has an integral float. Exactly the same as them pair. So, at a guess, fuel in. No. No, wrong before you even started. So, that is obviously vacuum from the distributor, or for the distributor should I say, and this is, that must be fuel in. We've got some form of adjustment there, we've got some form of adjustment there, we've got something there for that. We've got a hole there that don't seem to do anything. So that's definitely fuel in, because what I've just done is I've blown into the carburettor, turn it on the side where the float shuts and you can't blow into it. So that's obviously all working. Oh, we've got, it's freezing up on us, all this rebuilding we're doing. That's obviously the main rum rum pedal, and that must be, I don't know. So what we're going to do is we're going to examine another carburettor, because I am lost for words. So that must be the breather for the engine fumes. Choke, vroom vroom pedal. We've got a pipe linking both of them together. But somewhere there should be an overflow. But there isn't, unless that's it. Could that be an overflow for the... I think that's the overflow. In, out, shake it all about. I think we've got a plan. So I had to remove the rubber sleeve that goes over the cable there. I may have to cut this section here down because I can't quite get full throttle. I'll just put this plate on just as a temporary measure. But if I pull on this, it's not quite opening to 90 degrees. I mean, it's like 85 degrees. But at the minute, it's a success, I think. So next job I'm going to be fitting the starter motor. It's important that these are free from dirt and grease, because even grease in there will stop this from working like this. So all I'm going to do is just clean it up and lubricate it with some light machine oil, like WD-40. There's a nice simple bench test of the starter motor using the forklift battery as the power. So I've got the starter fitted. I'm just going to use, I'm just connecting the wire up, I'm just going to use 2 copper washers that will help with the conductivity of the electricity. Spent a bit of time trying to get this carburettor sorted. Split the manifolds, clean them up, come to fit it, and yeah, it don't quite fit. I never removed this carburettor from the original setup. I just acquired it. So I didn't really know how it fitted. But that, to me, is absolutely no good. Because it's just... For starters, the studs are too long, even though they're the same length as the originals. So the whole thing has got to come this way towards us, and then you've got to get space for the air filter, and yeah, there's just no space because of the heater tube. So that has stumped that plan. So at the minute, everything is against me. But what I can do is fit my rocker cover, which I've cleaned and polished. I'm not a very happy bunny about this, because I was kind of hoping to use that SU carburettor, but it's just not. I just don't see it being feasible to do that. So I've put the rocker cover on. That's all ready to go. Spark plugs are in. Need a distributor. I've got one. I know where that is. So yeah, I think what I'm going to do now, before it gets too late, I'm going to do the clutch master cylinder on my little short wheelbase there, and then call it a night.